I watched them through the kitchen door. My son Michael, my daughter-in-law Vanessa, and their 2 children, all gathered around the dining table where I'd placed the gift. The handmade quilt. It had taken me 6 months to complete. Every stitch sewn with arthritic fingers that ached by the end of each day. Every patch chosen to represent a memory. Their wedding, the births of the grandchildren, family vacations. And they were laughing. Not the kind of laughter that warms your heart. No, this was different. Mocking. Cruel. Did you see this thing? Vanessa's voice carried clearly through the door. She actually thinks we'd use this. This old lady craft project. Michael chuckled. What are we supposed to do with it? It doesn't match anything in the house. I mean, it's sweet that she tried, their teenage daughter Emma said, but her tone suggested otherwise. But seriously, who even makes quilts anymore? Their younger son Tyler added. Grandma's so out of touch. I stood there frozen, my hand gripping the doorframe so hard my knuckles turned white. The gift I poured my heart into, along with something far more valuable that was tucked inside its folds, reduced to a punchline. But they hadn't found it yet. The envelope. The deed to my house. The 3-bedroom home I'd lived in for 40 years. The home where I'd raised Michael. The home I'd been planning to sign over to them because Vanessa had been dropping hints for months about how difficult their financial situation was, how they really needed help, how I was getting too old to maintain such a big property anyway. I'd already signed the papers. I just hadn't filed them yet. The deed was in that quilt, tucked into a special pocket I'd sewn into the backing, along with a letter explaining that I was giving them my most precious possession because I loved them and wanted to help. As I stood there listening to them ridicule my gift, something shifted inside me. Something that had been bending under pressure for years finally snapped back into place. I'd been so ready to sacrifice my security, my independence, my home, the last thing I truly owned, for people who couldn't even pretend to appreciate a handmade quilt. I turned and walked back to my small apartment. The apartment I'd moved into a year ago after Vanessa convinced me I'd be so much happier in a smaller space, easier to manage at my age. I'd sold most of my furniture to fit into this place, keeping only what was essential. I'd done it because they said it made sense. Because they said it was for the best. Because I believe that good parents make sacrifices for their children. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my armchair, one of the few pieces I'd kept from the old house, and thought about everything that had led me here. My name is Joan Mitchell. I'm 72 years old. I was married to Richard Mitchell for 38 years before he passed away from cancer 7 years ago. We had 1 child together. Michael. We gave him everything. Richard worked double shifts at the factory so Michael could go to college. I took on cleaning jobs to pay for his books, his car, his apartment when he couldn't find work after graduation. We did what parents do. We sacrificed. We loved. We supported. When Richard got sick, Michael visited twice. Once when we called to tell him about the diagnosis. Once for the funeral. He lived 45 minutes away. He had a good job by then, working in IT management. He was married to Vanessa and they had Emma, who was just a baby at the time. I didn't blame him for not visiting more during those 18 months of Richard's illness. People process things differently. That's what I told myself. He's busy with his young family. He's building his career. He's dealing with this in his own way. After Richard died, I was alone. The house felt enormous. Every room echoed with memories. I kept myself busy with volunteer work at the community center, with my quilting group, with my garden. I made sure to call Michael every week. Sometimes he answered. Sometimes Vanessa would say he was too busy and she'd have him call back. He rarely did. But I understood. Life gets hectic. Families are complicated. I didn't want to be the nagging mother-in-law, the clingy parent. So I gave them space. I showed up for birthdays and holidays when invited. I sent gifts. I babysat when they needed me. I tried to be helpful without being intrusive. About 3 years ago, things started to change. Vanessa began calling more often. She'd chat about their lives, ask about mine. Felt good having that connection. She'd mention casually how expensive things were getting. How Emma's school fees were outrageous. How Tyler needed braces. How their mortgage payment had gone up. How Michael's company was going through restructuring and his job might not be secure. I started helping. A few hundred here and there. Then a few thousand when they said they were behind on payments. I dipped into the savings Richard and I had carefully built over decades. I told myself this was what the money was for, to help my family when they needed it. Then last year Vanessa suggested I might want to consider downsizing. "Joan, you're not getting any younger," she'd said, her voice dripping with concern that felt rehearsed. "That house is too much for you. The yard, the maintenance, the stairs. What if you fell? What if something happened and no one was there to help?" She painted a picture of independence and simplicity. "Think how much easier life would be in a nice apartment. No yard work. No repairs. No worries. And you'd have extra money from selling the house. You could travel. Enjoy your retirement." It made sense when she said it. I was getting older. The stairs were becoming more difficult. The house did require upkeep that was getting harder to manage. Maybe it was time. But when it came time to list the house, Vanessa had another suggestion. "You know, Joan, if you sell on the open market, you'll lose so much to realtor fees and taxes. Have you thought about just transferring it to Michael? He's your heir anyway. You could live there until you're ready to fully move. Or we could rent it out for you and you'd have extra income. It would stay in the family." I should have seen it then. But I didn't want to. I wanted to believe my daughter-in-law had my best interests at heart. I wanted to believe my son would take care of me. I wanted to believe I was making a smart decision that would benefit everyone. So I found a smaller apartment. I moved. I downsized my life into 800 square feet. And I kept the house in my name for a while, renting it to a nice couple who paid on time and took care of the property. But Vanessa kept pushing. It would just be easier if the house was in Michael's name. Then we could handle the rental management. You wouldn't have to worry about it. Plus, it would simplify your estate planning. 6 months ago, I finally agreed. I met with a lawyer and had the papers drawn up. Transfer of deed from Joan Mitchell to Michael Mitchell. My entire legacy. The home where I built my life. The property that represented every sacrifice Richard and I had made. The lawyer asked me several times if I was sure. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is a significant asset. Once you transfer it, it's no longer yours. Are you certain this is what you want?" I was certain. Or I thought I was. Because family takes care of family. Because I'd raised a good son. Because surely my own child wouldn't take advantage of me. I signed the papers. But something made me hesitate before filing them. Some instinct for self-preservation that I'd been ignoring for too long. I told myself I'd give them the deed as a gift. Make it special. Present it in a way that showed how much thought I'd put into this decision. That's when I started the quilt. I decided to create something beautiful. Something that represented our family history. And I'd hide the deed inside it. A surprise. A testament to my love and trust. For 6 months I worked on that quilt. Every evening after my part-time job at the library, yes, I still worked because my savings were depleted from helping them, I'd sit and sew. My fingers would cramp. My back would ache. My eyes would strain under the lamp. But I kept going because this was my gift. My sacrifice. My way of showing that I'd always put family first. I chose fabrics carefully. Blue calico from a dress I'd made for Michael when he was 5. Floral print from curtains that had hung in his childhood bedroom. A piece of Richard's favorite flannel shirt. Fabric from Emma's baby blanket that I'd sewn for her. Scraps from a Halloween costume I'd made for Tyler. Each square told a story. Each stitch connected our history. I created an intricate pattern. A traditional family tree design with our initials embroidered throughout. I added a special pocket in the backing. Invisible unless you knew where to look. That's where I placed the deed, along with a letter I'd written explaining the gift. "Dear Michael and Vanessa," it read. "This house represents everything your father and I built together. Every wall holds a memory. Every room saw laughter, tears, growth, and love. I'm giving it to you not because I don't value it, but because I do. I want it to stay in our family. I want Emma and Tyler to have the security of knowing they have roots, a place that belongs to them. I trust you to honor this gift and to understand the sacrifice behind it. With all my love, Mom." Last week I finally finished the quilt. It was beautiful. Even I could see that, despite my doubts about my craftsmanship. It was heavy, substantial, warm. It was a work of art in its own humble way. and tucked inside was my entire future signed away. I called Vanessa to arrange a visit. "I have something special for you and Michael," I said. "A gift I've been working on." "Oh, Joan, you shouldn't have," she said, but her tone wasn't warm. It was dismissive. "You really don't need to keep giving us things." But she invited me over for dinner anyway. Sunday evening. Family dinner, she said. The kids would be there. It would be nice. I arrived with the quilt wrapped in tissue paper, tied with ribbon. I'd also brought a homemade lasagna because I knew it was Michael's favorite, and fresh cookies for the grandkids. I spent all Sunday afternoon cooking, wanting everything to be perfect for this moment. Vanessa met me at the door. She didn't smile. "You brought food?" "Joan, I already made dinner. You should have told me." "Oh, I just thought, Michael loves my lasagna, and I know you're always so busy. It's fine. We'll figure it out." She took the dish from my hands with barely concealed annoyance. "The kids are doing homework. Michael's watching the game. You can put the gift on the dining table." The evening felt wrong from the start. Michael barely looked up when I greeted him. "Hey, Mom," he muttered, eyes fixed on the television. Emma was on her phone. Tyler was playing video games. No one seemed particularly interested in family dinner or in my presence. "Should I set the table?" I offered. "Sure, whatever," Vanessa said from the kitchen. I set the table for 5, using the everyday dishes. I remembered when Vanessa had different china for special occasions, but I didn't dare suggest using it. I placed the wrapped quilt on the sideboard where everyone would see it. Dinner was tense. Vanessa served her chicken, which was dry, and pushed my lasagna to the side. "We'll save this for leftovers," she announced, as if my effort was an imposition rather than a contribution. Michael talked about work. Some project that was frustrating him. Some coworker who wasn't pulling their weight. Vanessa complained about the neighborhood association and their ridiculous rules about lawn ornaments. Emma complained about her science teacher. Tyler complained about his soccer coach. No one asked how I was. No one asked about my week, my life, my health. I was just there taking up space at their table. After dinner, Emma and Tyler disappeared back to their rooms. Michael returned to his game. Vanessa started clearing dishes with loud martyred sighs that suggested she was the only person who ever did any work around here. "I'll help," I offered, standing. "It's fine, Joan. You just sit." So I sat. In their living room. Alone. Waiting for some acknowledgement of my presence. Some indication that they were glad I'd come. Some moment where we'd open the gift together. Finally, after 20 minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. "I brought you something," I said, my voice sounding small in the large room. "A gift I made." Michael glanced over. "Oh yeah? What is it?" "It's on the dining table. Could we open it together?" "Sure, Mom. Commercials coming up." I waited through 3 more minutes of football. Then Michael finally stood, stretched, and wandered into the dining room. Vanessa came out of the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. She looked at the wrapped package with an expression I couldn't quite read. I stood, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment I'd been working toward for 6 months. The moment they'd see how much I loved them, how much I trusted them, how much I was willing to sacrifice for their happiness. "Go ahead," I said softly. "Open it." Michael tore at the ribbon and tissue paper without ceremony. The quilt unfolded. The colors caught the light. The intricate patterns were clearly visible. The hours of work, the carefully chosen fabrics, the love stitched into every seam. Vanessa stared at it. "It's a blanket." "A quilt," I corrected gently. "I made it for you. Look, here's fabric from Michael's childhood, and this piece is from Emma's baby blanket, and that's nice, Joan. Thank you." Michael's voice was flat, empty of emotion. He looked at the quilt like it was a problem he needed to solve. "Where exactly do you think we'd use this?" Vanessa asked, making no effort to hide her disappointment. "It doesn't really go with our decor." I thought, maybe for the guest room? Or the family room? It's meant to be a family heirloom. Something to pass down. And there's something special. I reached toward the quilt, thinking to show them the hidden pocket, the real gift inside. But Vanessa was already folding it up. "We'll find somewhere for it. Thank you." It was thoughtful. The words were right, but the delivery was ice cold. Can I get back to the game? Michael asked. Fourth quarter's starting. And just like that, the moment was over. My 6 months of work dismissed in less than 2 minutes. My grand gesture reduced to an inconvenience. My sacrifice unacknowledged. I should go, I heard myself say. Let you enjoy your evening. You don't have to rush off, Vanessa said. But she was already walking back toward the kitchen with the quilt tucked under her arm like dirty laundry. No, it's late. I should get home. Michael was already back on the couch. Okay, Mom. Thanks for coming. Drive safe. No hug. No walk to the door. No genuine warmth. I gathered my purse and my empty lasagna pan. They didn't even want my food, and let myself out. As I reached my car, I realized I'd forgotten my reading glasses on their entry table. I turned back intending to knock, but the front door hadn't latched properly. It stood slightly ajar. I should have knocked anyway. I should have announced myself. But something stopped me. Some instinct that wanted to know the truth. I pushed the door open just a crack and heard their voices from the dining room. Did you see this thing? Vanessa's voice dripping with disdain. She actually thinks we'd use this old lady craft project. My breath caught. I should have left. I should have walked away. But I stood there frozen listening. Michael's laugh. What are we supposed to do with it? It doesn't match anything in the house. I mean, it's sweet that she tried. Emma's voice, surprisingly mature in its cruelty. But seriously, who even makes quilts anymore? Grandma's so out of touch, Tyler added. Then Vanessa again. We'll donate it to Goodwill. Maybe some old person will want it. Does she think we're poor or something? That we need handmade blankets like we live in the Great Depression? Michael's voice held contempt I'd never heard before. Contempt for me. His mother. She's been so weird since your dad died. Clingy. Always trying to insert herself into our lives. The constant phone calls, the surprise visits with food we didn't ask for, the gifts nobody wants. It's exhausting. I know, Michael agreed. But we can't say anything. She's old. She's alone. We just have to be patient. Patient? Michael, I've been patient for years. Your mother is suffocating. And she's always hinting about coming to live with us. Can you imagine? Her here all the time. That's never happening. I don't care what we have to do. Well, at least once we get the house transferred, we'll have some leverage. We can sell it, finally get out of our mortgage mess, and then we don't have to feel guilty about keeping our distance. We'll have helped her downsize and gotten our inheritance early. Win-win. My legs nearly gave out. The house. They were just waiting for me to hand over the house so they could sell it. Not to keep it in the family. Not to honor my legacy or Richard's memory. To pay off their debts and be done with me. When is she actually signing over the deed? Vanessa asked. She's been dragging her feet for months. I'll call her next week and push harder. Tell her we need it for tax purposes or something. She'll do it. She always does what I ask eventually. I backed away from the door silently, carefully. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip my car keys. I drove home in a daze, the words echoing in my head. Old lady craft project. Out of touch. Exhausting. Suffocating. That's never happening. This is what they really thought of me. This is what my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd sacrificed everything for really felt. Not love. Not gratitude. Not even basic respect. Just tolerance. Patience. Waiting for me to die or become manageable. And the house. The house Richard and I had built our lives in. They wanted it only for what they could get out of selling it. The money. That's all I was worth to them. That's all my history, my memories, my security meant. Dollar signs. I made it home and sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes before I could move. When I finally got inside my apartment, I stood in the middle of the living room and looked around at what my life had become. A small space. Few possessions. Most of my savings gone. My independence compromised. My dignity eroded. All because I believed that family came first. That sacrifice was noble. That love would be reciprocated. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke up with clarity I hadn't felt in years. The hurt was still there, sharp and deep, but it was overlaid with something else. Determination. Resolve. I'd spent 72 years being accommodating. being understanding, being selfless to the point of self-destruction. And what had it gotten me? Mockery, exploitation, disrespect. No more. I called my lawyer's office as soon as they opened. James, this is Joan Mitchell. About the deed transfer we prepared? I need to see you today. It's urgent. We met that afternoon. James Cooperman had been my lawyer for 15 years, handling my will, Richard's estate, various legal matters. He was in his 60s, professional, trustworthy. He looked concerned when I sat down across from his desk. What's wrong, Joan? You sounded upset on the phone. I've changed my mind about transferring the house to Michael. He sat back in his chair, studying me. I see. Can I ask what prompted this change? I told him everything. The gift, the overheard conversation, the realization that I'd been manipulated, the understanding that my son saw me as a burden and an ATM, rather than a parent deserving of respect. James listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Joan, I'm going to be honest with you. When you first came to me about this transfer, I had concerns. You were giving away your most valuable asset with no guarantees, no legal protections, nothing in writing about your care or security. I advised against it, if you remember. I remember. I dismissed his concerns at the time, confident that my son would never take advantage of me. I'm relieved you're reconsidering. What would you like to do? I want to keep the house in my name. The tenants are good. The rental income helps. And I want to make sure that when I die, Michael inherits under specific conditions. Conditions that protect the property's legacy. We can absolutely do that. We'll create a proper trust or update your will with stipulations. But Joan, what about the sign deed? You said you already signed it. I did. But I never filed it. It's still in an envelope in my apartment. It has no legal standing until it's registered with the county, correct? Correct. An unrecorded deed has no effect. It's just a piece of paper. If you've had a change of heart, I'd recommend you destroy it immediately. I intend to. But first I want Michael and Vanessa to see me destroy it. I want them to understand that they don't get to treat me like garbage and still benefit from my generosity. James smiled slightly. That's a very direct approach. Are you prepared for the fallout? I'm prepared to stand up for myself for the first time in years. If that causes fallout, so be it. Then let's make sure you're protected. I'll draft a new will with clear provisions. You can specify that the house goes to your grandchildren in trust, or to charity, or to Michael only if certain conditions are met. Whatever you prefer. And I'd recommend we also look at power of attorney documents. Do you have those in place? Michael has power of attorney. James's face tightened. We need to revoke that immediately and assign it to someone you can trust. A family member's financial power of attorney allows them to make decisions about your assets. Given what you've told me, I'd advise naming someone else. A trusted friend, another relative, or a professional fiduciary. I hadn't even thought of that. The realization of how vulnerable I'd made myself hit me like a physical blow. What if he'd already used it? Could he have transferred the house without my knowledge? Not without the signed deed. But yes, technically, someone with your power of attorney could act on your behalf financially. The fact that Michael hasn't done so suggests either he doesn't understand the full scope of his authority, or he was waiting for you to do it voluntarily to avoid any legal scrutiny. Oh my God. I felt sick. What else could he access? Your bank accounts. Your investments. Any financial asset in your name. Joan, we need to address this immediately. Today. We spent the next 2 hours going through every legal document I'd signed. James drafted revocations, new powers of attorney naming my longtime friend Margaret as my representative, and a comprehensive new will. In this will, I specified that my house would go into a trust for Emma and Tyler, to be used for their education and accessed only when they turned 30. Michael and Vanessa would have no control over it. They could not sell it, borrow against it, or profit from it in any way. If Michael contests this? I asked. He can try, but if you're of sound mind, which you clearly are, and the documents are properly executed, he won't succeed. You have the right to distribute your assets as you see fit. What about everything I've already given them? The money. Gifts already given are generally not recoverable, unless you can prove fraud or undue influence. How much money are we talking about? I calculated in my head. Over the past 3 years, at least $80,000. My entire savings from a lifetime of careful planning. Gone. Handed over willingly because I believe their sob stories about financial hardship. About 80,000, I said quietly. James whistled low. That's substantial. Joan, were these gifts, or did they promise to repay you? They said they'd pay me back when things got better. But nothing was in writing. Without documentation, it's nearly impossible to recover. I'm sorry, but going forward you're protected. And you still have your house, your rental income, and your Social Security. You can rebuild. I signed all the new documents. James had them notarized immediately. By the time I left his office, I had a folder full of papers that revoked every bit of access Michael had to my life, my assets, my future. Felt empowering. And terrifying. That evening Margaret came over. I'd called her after leaving James's office, needing to talk to someone I trusted. Margaret had been my friend for 30 years. We'd met through our church and had stayed close through marriages, children, grandchildren, widowhood. She'd lost her husband 5 years before Richard died. She understood loss and loneliness and the complicated dynamics of adult children. Tell me everything, she said as we sat with tea in my small living room. I did. I told her about the quilt, the conversation I'd overheard, the lawyer's office, the revocations, the new will. She listened with growing anger on my face. Joan Mitchell, I could just shake you, she said when I finished. Why didn't you talk to me before signing over your house? I would have told you were crazy. I know. I wanted to believe my son loved me. Love isn't measured in property transfers. It's measured in respect, in time, in care. When's the last time Michael took you to lunch? Asked about your life? Invited you over without you initiating it? I thought about it. I can't remember. Exactly. And you were going to give him your house. Thank God you came to your senses. I want to confront them. I want them to know that I know what they said, what they think of me. I want to burn that deed in front of them. Margaret grinned. Dramatic. I love it. But be careful. People can be cruel when they realize they're not getting what they expected. I've been a doormat my entire life. Accommodating. Understanding. Forgiving. I'm done. If Michael can't accept me standing up for myself, then maybe it's time to accept that I don't have the son I thought I raised. When are you going to do it? Sunday. They have family dinner every Sunday. Vanessa texted this morning asking if I was coming this week. I said yes. She seemed surprised. Probably because I usually wait to be invited. This time I invited myself. And I'm bringing the deed with me. I'm coming with you, Margaret said firmly. You need a witness. Someone in your corner. You don't have to. Joan, I'm coming. This is non-negotiable. You've supported me through everything. Now it's my turn. I felt tears prick my eyes. Real support. Real friendship. Real loyalty. The things I'd been giving to my son and daughter-in-law without receiving them in return. The next few days passed slowly. I went to work at the library, came home, had dinner alone, tried to watch television. But my mind kept returning to Sunday. To the conversation I needed to have. To the deed I needed to destroy. On Saturday, I retrieved the quilt from where I assumed it would be. Probably shoved in a closet somewhere. I called Vanessa with an excuse. I think I might have left something in the quilt pocket, I said casually. My mother's ring. Could I stop by and check? There was a pause. You sewed a ring into the quilt? There was a pocket in the back. It's important. Family heirloom. I'd like to get it back. Fine. Come by now. We're home. I drove over with Margaret. We found the quilt exactly where I expected. Wadded up in their hall closet, shoved behind coats and shoes. Not treasured. Not displayed. Not cared for. Discarded. I retrieved the envelope from the hidden pocket while Vanessa watched with barely concealed annoyance. Inside was the deed and my letter. I said nothing, just took them and left. Satisfied. Vanessa called after me. Very, I replied. Sunday arrived. Margaret picked me up at 4 o'clock. I dressed carefully. A nice outfit, my good jewelry, my hair done at the salon that morning. If I was going to reclaim my dignity, I was going to look dignified doing it. I brought nothing else. No food. No gifts. No peace offerings. Just myself, Margaret, and the envelope containing the deed. Vanessa opened the door with a confused expression. Joan. And, Margaret. I didn't know you were bringing a guest. Margaret is my friend and my witness. We won't be staying long. Vanessa's confusion deepened to concern. Witness to what? I walked past her into the house. Michael was in the living room. Emma and Tyler were at the dining table doing homework. Everyone looked up as I entered with Margaret at my side. Family meeting, I announced. Everyone in the living room. Now. The tone of my voice, firm, commanding, seemed to shock them. Michael stood slowly. Mom, what's going on? Sit down. Everyone. They sat. Even Vanessa, after a moment of hesitation, perched on the edge of the couch. Margaret stood beside me like a bodyguard. I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope. Last week I brought you a gift. A quilt I'd spent 6 months making. Do you remember? Yeah, Michael said carefully. It was nice. Thank you. Where is it now? Silence. Where is the quilt I made you? Vanessa cleared her throat. In the closet. We haven't decided where to display it yet. Display it? I laughed bitterly. You mean you haven't decided which Goodwill to donate it to? Isn't that what you said? That maybe some old person would want it. Vanessa's face went white. Michael looked confused. What are you talking about? I heard you. Last week after I left. I came back for my glasses and the door was open. I heard every word. How my quilt was an old lady craft project. How I'm out of touch and exhausting. How you were just being patient with me until you could get what you really wanted. Michael stood. Mom, let me explain. Sit down. My voice cracked like a whip. You don't get to explain. You get to listen. Saturday inside that quilt was an envelope. Inside that envelope was this. I held up the deed. The deed to my house. Signed over to you, Michael. My home. The house where your father and I raised you. Where every wall holds a memory. Where Richard died. My most valuable possession. My security. My legacy. I was giving it to you because I believed you deserved it. Because I believed you'd honor it. Because I was foolish enough to believe my son actually loved me. Vanessa's eyes were fixed on the deed. I could see the calculation happening in her mind. The disappointment. The anger at having lost what she thought was already hers. But then I heard what you really think of me. How you see me as a burden. How you're just waiting for me to die or become convenient. How you only wanted the house to sell it and pay off your debts. You don't care about family legacy. You care about money. My assets. What you can extract from me. That's not true, Michael said weakly. We love you, Mom. Don't lie to me. Don't you dare lie to my face after what I heard. You said, and I quote, at least once we get the house transferred, we'll have some leverage and we don't have to feel guilty about keeping our distance. Those were your words. Your wife said I was suffocating, that having me live here would never happen. And you agreed. Emma and Tyler looked horrified. They were seeing their parents in a new light, and it clearly wasn't comfortable. Grandma. Emma started. I held up a hand. This isn't about you two. This is about your parents and how they've treated me. How they've used me. How they've taken my money, my time, my love, and given me nothing but contempt in return. We never asked for your money, Vanessa said defensively. No, you just complained constantly about how hard things were. How tight money was. How you couldn't make ends meet. You manipulated me into offering. And I gave you everything, $80,000 over 3 years. My entire life savings. Gone. Because I believed family helps family. Michael's jaw dropped. 80,000? Did you even keep track? Or was it just an unlimited bank account to you? Every time you cried poverty, I emptied my accounts. I have nothing left but my social security and rental income from a house I almost signed over to you. Mom will pay you back, Michael said quickly. We just need time. No. I cut him off. You don't get to make promises now. You had years to show me respect. Years to treat me like a person instead of a resource. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. I pulled out the lighter I'd brought. I'd thought about using matches for symbolism, but a lighter was more practical. This deed is signed and notarized. But it was never filed, which means legally it means nothing. And now it never will. I held the corner of the deed to the flame. The paper caught immediately, edges curling black and red as fire ate through my signature, through Michael's name, through the legal language that would have transferred my entire security to people who didn't deserve it. "What are you doing?" Vanessa shrieked, jumping to her feet. "That's your house. That's Michael's inheritance. This is me protecting myself from people who see me as nothing more than an inconvenience with assets." The deed burned in my hands. I dropped it into the decorative bowl on their coffee table, empty except for useless decorative stones, and watched it burn completely to ash. "You can't do this," Vanessa hissed. "That house should be Michael's. He's your son. And I'm his mother. But that hasn't meant anything to him in years. Tell me, Michael, when's the last time you called me just to talk? When's the last time you invited me over without me prompting? When's the last time you asked about my life, my health, my happiness?" He couldn't answer. He just stared at the ashes in the bowl. "You have nothing to say?" "Nothing. 15 years, Michael. 15 years since your father died and I've been alone. You visited maybe twice a year unless you needed something. You've called when it was convenient for you. You've accepted every penny I offered and never once asked if I could afford it. You've let your wife insult me, dismiss me, use me. And I allowed it because I was terrified of losing the only family I had left." Tears were streaming down my face now, but my voice was steady. "But I've lost you already. The son I raised, the man I thought you'd become, he doesn't exist. Or maybe he never did. Maybe I was so busy sacrificing and accommodating that I raised a man who thinks he's entitled to everything and owes nothing in return." "That's not fair," Michael said, but there was no conviction in his voice. "What's not fair is working 6 months on a gift for people who mock it the moment I leave. What's not fair is emptying my savings for a family that calls me exhausting. What's not fair is nearly signing over my home to people who only want to sell it. Don't talk to me about fair." I turned to Emma and Tyler, who were watching with wide eyes. "I want you two to learn something from this. Love isn't about what you can get from people. It's not about waiting for an inheritance or tolerating someone until they're useful. Real love is about respect, care, genuine connection. Your parents have failed at that spectacularly. I hope you do better." Then I looked at Vanessa. "I revoked Michael's power of attorney. He no longer has any access to my finances or legal authority over my affairs. I've updated my will. The house goes into a trust for Emma and Tyler's education. You and Michael get nothing. You can't sell it, borrow against it, or touch it. My lawyer has all the documents. Everything is legal and binding." Vanessa's face was purple with rage. "You vindictive old..." "Careful," Margaret said quietly. "There are witnesses here. Choose your next words very carefully." Vanessa snapped her mouth shut, picked up my purse. "I'm leaving now. Don't contact me unless you're ready to genuinely apologize and rebuild a relationship based on mutual respect. Not money, not inheritance, not what you can get from me. Just respect. If you can't do that, then we're done. I'd rather be alone than disrespected." "Mom, wait." Michael stood, reaching for me. I stepped back. "No. You don't get to wait me. You don't get to smooth this over with empty words. You either change fundamentally or you've lost me. Your choice." Margaret and I walked out. Behind us, I heard Vanessa explode. "Do you know what you just did? That was our house. That was our way out of debt. Go after her. Fix this." But Michael didn't follow. Maybe he was too shocked. Maybe he realized there was nothing he could say. Maybe he just didn't care enough to try. Margaret drove me home in silence. When we pulled up to my apartment building, she turned to me with tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you, Joan. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. You just did something incredibly hard. Something most people never have the courage to do. You stood up for yourself. I burned a bridge with my only child." "No. He burned that bridge years ago with disrespect and neglect. You just stopped pretending it was intact. There's a difference." I went inside and sat in my chair, the one from the old house, and let myself cry. Not gentle tears, but huge, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded. I cried for the son I'd lost or maybe never had. I cried for the years I'd wasted trying to earn love that should have been freely given. I cried for the grandmother who'd been tolerated rather than treasured. But underneath the grief was something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Strength, clarity, self-respect. I'd spent my entire life taking care of others, being accommodating, making sacrifices, prioritizing everyone else's needs and feelings over my own. And it had nearly cost me everything. Not anymore. The next few days were quiet. No calls from Michael. No furious texts from Vanessa. No one reaching out to apologize or explain or repair. Just silence. It hurt, but it was also clarifying. If they couldn't reach out even now after everything, then I'd made the right choice. Margaret checked on me daily. My quilting group rallied around me when I told them a simplified version of the story. My book club friends offered support. I realized, somewhat shocked, that I had a community. People who valued me not for what I could give them but for who I was. 2 weeks after the confrontation, my phone rang. Emma. Grandma? It's Emma. Please don't hang up. I won't. How are you, sweetheart? Confused. Sad. Mom and Dad won't talk about what happened. They just say you overreacted. But I heard what you said. About the money and the quilt and everything. Grandma, I didn't know. Tyler and I didn't know they were treating you like that. My heart ached. This isn't your burden, Emma. But I want to understand. Did you really give them $80,000? Over 3 years, yes. Oh my God. And they never appreciated it? They never said thank you properly. They said thank you. But it was always followed by the next crisis, the next need. It felt less like gratitude and more like expectation. That's awful. Grandma, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We should have been better to you. I should have visited more, called more. You made me that quilt square, from my baby blanket, and I thought it was beautiful. I told Mom we should hang it up. She said it was too old-fashioned. Tears pricked my eyes again. Thank you for saying that. Can I still see you? Even if Mom and Dad are whatever they are. I'm 16. I can take the bus. I'd like to spend time with you. Real time. Not just obligatory holiday stuff. I would love that more than you know. Tyler wants to come too. He felt really bad about what he said. About you being out of touch. He didn't mean it the way it sounded. Tell him I forgive him. You're kids. You were following your parents' lead. This isn't your fault. Will you forgive them? Mom and Dad. If they genuinely apologize and make real changes? Maybe. But forgiveness doesn't mean accepting disrespect. I'm not going back to how things were. Good. You shouldn't. You deserve better, Grandma. We made plans for Emma to visit the following Saturday. After we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. My grandchildren still wanted a relationship. That was something. That was important. 3 weeks later, Michael finally called. His voice was strained. Mom? Can we talk? About what? About everything. About what happened. I've been doing a lot of thinking. And you were right. About a lot of things. I haven't been a good son. I took you for granted. I let Vanessa influence how I treated you. I got so caught up in our financial stress that I saw you as a solution instead of a person. That wasn't okay. No, it wasn't. I know sorry doesn't fix it. I know I can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal. But I am sorry, Mom. I'm genuinely sorry. Not because I lost the house, though that was a wake-up call, but because I hurt you. Because I disrespected you. Because I failed at being the son you deserved. I was quiet for a long moment. What about Vanessa? She's working through things. She's angry mostly. But she knows we messed up. She knows we pushed you too far. I don't want to be tolerated, Michael. I don't want to be the burden you endure until inheritance time. I want to be respected. Valued. Actually loved. Not just claim to be loved when it's convenient. I understand. And I don't know if I can fix this. But I'd like to try. If you'll let me. It will take time. And real change. Not just words. I know. Can we start with coffee? Just talking. No expectations. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no to protect myself from more disappointment. But another part, the part that still remembered the little boy I'd raised. The son I'd loved unconditionally for decades, Wanted to give him a chance. One coffee. We'll see how it goes. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for not giving up completely. I haven't given up on you, Michael. But I've also stopped giving up myself. Remember that. We met for coffee 3 days later at a neutral cafe halfway between our homes. Michael looked tired. Older. Stressed. How are Emma and Tyler? I asked. Good. Emma's been coming to see you. Every Saturday. Tyler came last week. We baked cookies. They've been different since that night. More aware. More thoughtful. Emma asked me point blank if we only cared about your money. It was hard to answer. What did you say? I said no, but that I'd acted like I did. That I was ashamed of how I'd treated you. That I was going to do better. He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Mom, I don't know when I became this person. The kind of person who uses his mother. Who sees her as an ATM. Who mocks gifts she makes. When did that happen? I don't know. But recognizing it is a start. Vanessa and I have been in counseling. For our marriage, but also, our therapist pointed out patterns. How we've been living beyond our means for years. How we've been blaming everyone else for our financial problems instead of taking responsibility. How we've been using people, you especially, to bail us out instead of making hard changes. Are you making those changes now? We're trying. We sold Vanessa's car. We're downsizing to one vehicle. We canceled the country club membership. We're cutting expenses we shouldn't have had in the first place. It's humbling, but necessary. I'm glad you're taking responsibility. I want to pay you back. The $80,000. It'll take years, but I want to make a plan. Real payments. Scheduled. In writing. Because you're right, it wasn't a gift. We said we'd pay you back and we never did. That was theft. I was surprised. I'd written that money off as lost. It's not lost. It's owed. And I'm going to repay it. Even if it takes the rest of my life. You deserve that. We talked for 2 hours. It wasn't comfortable. There were long silences and difficult admissions. But it was honest. More honest than we'd been with each other in years. At the end, Michael asked, is there any chance you'll change your will? Not because I want the house. But because I want to know if you'll ever trust me again. Trust is earned, Michael. Keep showing up. Keep being honest. Keep treating me with respect. In 5 years, 10 years, we'll see where we are. The will protects Emma and Tyler's future. That's what matters most to me. But if you prove yourself, we can revisit things. That's fair. More than fair. We hugged when we parted. It wasn't the warm, close embrace of a loving mother and son. But it was a beginning. Tentative. Fragile. Possible. Over the following months, things slowly shifted. Michael started calling weekly. Not when he needed something. Just to talk. To ask how I was. To share about his life. Sometimes Vanessa was on the call. She was stiffer, less warm, but she made an effort. She apologized eventually, though it felt rehearsed. I accepted it anyway because some apologies are all you get. Emma and Tyler became regular fixtures in my life. They'd come over and we'd bake or watch old movies or work on projects together. I taught Emma to quilt. She was surprisingly good at it, meticulous and creative. Tyler helped me set up social media so I could connect with old friends. They were thoughtful in ways their parents hadn't taught them, which gave me hope. I joined a seniors hiking group. Took a watercolor class at the community center. Started volunteering at a local animal shelter. My life, which had been so narrowly focused on trying to maintain a relationship with Michael's family, expanded. I had interests, hobbies, friends, independence. 6 months after burning the deed, Michael and Vanessa invited me to dinner. A real invitation. With a handwritten note saying they wanted to do better, and asking if I'd give them another chance at family dinner. I went. Margaret offered to come with me, but I told her I needed to do this alone. The evening was different. The house was cleaner. The meal was planned with foods I liked. Emma and Tyler were engaged and talkative. Michael asked questions about my week and listened to the answers. Vanessa showed me photos from Emma's school play, and actually seemed interested in whether I'd want to come to the next one. It wasn't perfect. There was still awkwardness. Still wounds that hadn't fully healed. But it was better. Genuinely, measurably better. After dinner, Michael handed me an envelope. This is the first payment. $200. I've set up automatic transfers for the first of every month. It's all I can afford right now, but it's consistent. I'll increase it when I can. I opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $200 and a handwritten note. Month 1 of 400. I'm sorry it will take so long. I'm sorry I took it in the first place. Thank you for giving me the chance to make this right. Love, Michael. 400 months. Over 33 years. He'd calculated the full repayment timeline and written it down. He was committing to paying me back until he was in his 70s. I started crying. Not from sadness this time. From something else. Something that felt like healing. You don't have to hold me to all 33 years, I said quietly. If you keep showing up, keep treating me with respect, keep being a real son, the debt is paid. No, Mom. The debt is the debt. The respect is separate. You deserve both. That evening, for the first time in years, I felt like maybe I'd been right to give Michael a chance. Maybe people could change. Maybe respect once demanded could actually be given. It's been a year now since I burned the deed. My life is unrecognizably different and better. I still live in my small apartment, but I've made it truly mine. I redecorated with pieces that bring me joy rather than trying to fit into someone else's vision of what my life should look like. I have pictures of my grandchildren on the walls, not formal portraits, but candid shots from our Saturday adventures. I have art from my watercolor class. I have quilts I've made for myself draped over furniture not because they match but because they make me happy. My rental property provides steady income. The tenants, the Johnsons, are lovely people who send me Christmas cards and occasionally invite me to their children's birthday parties. They treat my house with respect, understanding that it's not just an investment property, but someone's cherished home. When the furnace needed replacing last spring, they called to discuss options rather than demanding I pay for the most expensive solution. This is what respectful relationships look like. Michael has kept his word about the monthly payments. $200 first of every month like clockwork. He's up to payment 14 now. But more importantly, he's kept his word about showing up as a son. He calls twice a week. He invites me to Emma's school events. He asks my advice about work decisions not because he has to, but because he values my opinion. When I was sick with bronchitis in March, he brought soup and stayed to make sure I was okay. These are small things, but they represent massive changes. Vanessa is still working on herself. She's not warm, I don't think she ever will be, but she's respectful. She includes me in family planning. She asks about my preferences instead of making assumptions. She even complimented my new haircut last month. It felt genuine. Progress is progress even when it's slow. Emma graduated high school last spring. She's starting college this fall, planning to major in art education. She wants to teach children to create beautiful things. I think of the quilt I made, the one they mocked, and how Emma later said it inspired her to appreciate handmade art. Sometimes our gifts take time to be understood. Sometimes what looks like failure plants seeds for future growth. Tyler is 15 now. He's building me a website for my quilting. He says I should sell my pieces online because they're actually really cool, Grandma, and people would pay good money for this kind of craftsmanship. Coming from a teenager who once called me out of touch, this feels like vindication. He's learned to see value where he once saw obsolescence. My friendship with Margaret has deepened. She was my strength when I needed it most, and now we support each other through the ordinary challenges of aging. We travel together, small trips, weekend getaways to see fall foliage or visit historical sites. We have adventures. At 73, I'm having adventures. This would have been impossible when I was sacrificing everything for people who didn't appreciate it. The hiking group has become like family. We're all women over 60 who refuse to be invisible. We call ourselves the Trailblazers, corny, but we love it. We hike every Wednesday morning, rain or shine. Last month, we completed a 5-mile trail that would have seemed impossible a year ago. I'm stronger now, physically and emotionally. At the animal shelter, I've found purpose beyond family drama. I work with senior dogs, the ones people overlook because they're not puppies anymore. I understand these dogs. They have so much love to give, but people assume they're used up past their prime. I help match them with families who see their value. It's rewarding work that feeds my soul. My will remains unchanged. The house goes to Emma and Tyler's educational trust. Michael has accepted this and says he's proud of the provision I've made for his children. That's growth. Real growth. He's learned that love isn't measured in inheritance but in intention. But here's what I've learned over this past year. The most important lesson of all. I don't need to be needed to have value. For decades, I measured my worth by how useful I was to others. How much I could give. How much I could sacrifice. How much I could accommodate. I confused being used with being loved. Real love doesn't require you to diminish yourself. Real love doesn't ask you to empty your bank account or sign over your security. Real love doesn't mock your gifts behind your back. Real love shows up. It listens. It reciprocates. It respects boundaries. It appreciates effort. It sees you as a whole person, not just a resource. Standing up for myself didn't cost me my family. It saved what was worth saving and revealed what wasn't. The relationships that survived my boundaries are stronger now. The relationships that didn't weren't real relationships to begin with. Sometimes people ask if I regret burning the deed. If I regret the dramatic confrontation. If I think I should have handled things differently. The answer is no. Some situations require dramatic action. Some people only listen when the consequences are severe. Some bridges need to be burned so new. Stronger ones can be built. I think about that quilt sometimes. Not the one they mocked. Though I retrieved it from their closet and it now lives on my own couch where I can appreciate the work I put into it. I think about the metaphorical quilt. The pattern of my life. For too long I let other people choose the colors, dictate the design, decide what was valuable and what wasn't. Now I'm quilting my own pattern. Bold colors. Interesting textures. Unexpected combinations. Some people might not like it. Some might prefer the bland, accommodating version of Joan who never caused trouble and always said yes. But this version, the one who stands up for herself, who demands respect, who chooses adventure over obligation. This version is authentically mine. My life isn't perfect. I'm still lonely sometimes. I still worry about money, though less now that I'm not constantly giving it away. I still grieve the years I lost being someone I wasn't. But I wake up each morning knowing that today belongs to me. My choices. My priorities. My values. Last week, a woman from my watercolor class approached me after our session. She'd been quiet all semester, painting small tentative landscapes, while the rest of us experimented with bold strokes and bright colors. "Joan," she said hesitantly, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. You seem so confident, independent. My daughter keeps telling me I need to move closer to her, sell my house, let her manage my finances. She says I'm getting too old to live alone. But I love my house. I love my independence. How do you know when you're being wise versus when you're being stubborn?" I looked at this woman, probably my age, clearly struggling with the same pressures I'd faced. The same guilt. The same fear of being seen as selfish or difficult. "Ask yourself this," I said. "Is your daughter asking you to give up your independence because she's genuinely concerned about your safety and well-being? Or is she asking because it would be more convenient for her?" Listen to her words but also watch her actions. Does she visit you now? Call regularly? Show interest in your life? Or does she only contact you when she wants something to change? The woman's eyes filled with tears. She wants me to sell the house and give her the money for a down payment on a bigger place. She says it would be better for everyone. I'd be closer to family, they'd have more space, and I'd have less to worry about. And what do you want? I want to stay in my home. I want to tend my garden. I want to have my own space. But she makes me feel selfish for wanting that. Then stay. Get some safeguards in place, medical alert systems, regular check-ins with neighbors, whatever makes sense. But don't give up your life because someone else thinks you should. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for wanting dignity and independence. Those aren't selfish things to want. They're human things to want. She hugged me after class. "Thank you. I needed to hear that from someone who's been there." I realized then that my story isn't just about me and Michael and a burn deed. It's about every older person who's been pressured to give up their autonomy. Every parent who's been guilted into sacrificing their security for adult children who should be independent. Every person who's been made to feel that aging means becoming less important, less deserving of respect. We live in a culture that often treats elderly people as burdens or resources, rather than human beings with their own wants, needs, and rights. We're expected to be grateful for whatever attention we receive, to never complain about poor treatment, to give generously and ask for nothing in return. We're supposed to fade gracefully into the background, making ourselves smaller and smaller until we disappear entirely. I refuse to disappear. I refuse to be smaller. I refuse to accept disrespect in the name of family harmony. I refuse to give away my security for other people's convenience. I refuse to apologize for taking up space in my own life. This is what I want every person in my situation to know: you matter. Your comfort matters. Your preferences matter. Your financial security matters. Your dignity matters. You don't owe anyone your house, your savings, or your independence just because they're related to you. Blood doesn't entitle people to mistreat you. If someone loves you, they'll respect your boundaries. If someone needs you, they'll appreciate your help. If someone values you, they'll show it in their actions, not just their words. If they don't do these things, they don't deserve your sacrifices. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for others is to stop enabling bad behavior. Stop making excuses. Stop cushioning consequences. Stop sacrificing yourself to maintain relationships that only work when you're giving and they're taking. When I burned that deed, I wasn't just destroying a legal document. I was reclaiming my power, my agency, my right to make decisions about my own life. I was saying that my needs matter too, that my voice deserves to be heard, that my boundaries deserve to be respected. And you know what happened? The sky didn't fall. My son didn't disappear forever. My family didn't crumble. Instead, the people who were worth keeping learned to treat me better. The relationships that survived became healthier. The ones that didn't were revealed to be hollow anyway. A year later, I'm not the same woman who stood in that kitchen doorway listening to her gift be mocked. I'm stronger, wiser, more intentional about how I spend my time and energy. I have boundaries. I have self-respect. I have a life that belongs to me. If you're reading this and seeing yourself in my story, if you're the person being taken for granted, used for your resources, treated as an inconvenience, please know this: you deserve better. You have the right to demand better. And you have the strength to create better, even if it means burning some bridges along the way. Not all bridges are worth preserving. Some need to burn so you can build new ones, better ones. Ones built on mutual respect rather than one-sided sacrifice. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is light the match. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is no. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. I chose myself. And for the first time in decades, I'm living a life I actually want to live. That quilt I made, the one that started all this, hangs in my bedroom now. Every morning when I wake up, I see those carefully chosen fabrics, those painstaking stitches, that labor of love I created with my own hands. It reminds me that I am capable of making beautiful things, that my work has value, that my love, properly directed, can create something lasting. I am 73 years old. I am financially secure. I am emotionally healthy. I am surrounded by people who respect me. I have adventures planned and projects to complete. I have a future I'm excited about. All because I finally learned to love myself as much as I've been loving everyone else. All because I finally demanded the respect I've been freely giving. All because I finally chose to burn what was broken rather than keep trying to fix what was unfixable. The best gift I ever gave myself was the courage to light that match. The best lesson I ever learned was that some things are worth burning for. Sometimes you have to destroy something to save yourself. Sometimes the most loving act is the most radical one. Sometimes the only way forward is through the flames. I saw them laughing over my gift. The next day, I burned the deed in front of them. And that fire lit the way to a life worth living.